1275 BC, 2620 AM. The newly emerging Egyptian empire under Ramesses II seeks to crush the Hittite dynasty seated at Babylon. Ramesses II marches out and interestingly passes by Israel. No doubt the Egyptians recalled the disastrous history between they and the Israelites, and they had probably received intelligence concerning the defeat of Sisera and the Canaanites. On his way to Babylon, Ramesses II is opposed by the Hittites and their vassal armies in the Battle of Kadesh, where Ramesses II is defeated badly, his own army fleeing and leaving him alone. The Battle of Kadesh, Holy City, is depicted upon the walls of the Ramesseum near Thebes and the temples of Luxor, Karnak, Abydos and Abu Simbel. The war resulted with a curious alliance. The Egypto-Hittite Treaty was a mutual protection alliance prominently displayed at Thebes in Luxor and at Hattusis in Anatolia, concerning a growing power in the Mediterranean Sea that threatened both Hittite and Egyptian security, known to historians as the Sea People Federation, who are specifically mentioned in the treaty. This emerging power was spread throughout the Mediterranean and Aegean, and would lead to the famous Trojan War. This emerging power arose virtually overnight because the coastal cities of the ancient world were receiving fleets of immigrants from the rapidly multiplying families of Israel. This will be shown. Ramesses II's invasion and Battle of Kadesh was exactly 666 years before 609 BC, when Pharaoh Necho marched out against the king of Babylon, only to be crushed. In the treaty with the Hittites we find mentioned a place called Dan, with references to a goddess of Dan. In Phoenicia, who is called Asherah and Ashtoreth in the Old Testament texts. The Danites continued the worship of Baal and Asherah, as seen in the Old Testament, and they took this worship with them. In ancient Ireland, they were the Tuatha De Danann, people of the goddess Danu, they who brought Beltane to Ireland. Assyria is a major concern of the Hittites at this time. 1. History in quotations. 2. Ages in Chaos, Volume 2. 3. Survivors of Atlantis. 4. Ages in Chaos. 1273 BC, 2622 AM. Planet Phoenix passes through the inner solar system and Assyria drives out the Hittites from Babylonia. Babylon is annexed, as are other Near East cities, as Assyria emerges as a new empire. Interestingly, Assyria adopts the winged disc as its official seal, a much older symbol representing the phoenix. This is 666 years before the defeat of Assyria by Babylon in 607 BC. This is 552 years before the Assyrians will invade Israel and deport the 10 tribes into the northeast and far east. 1271 BC, 2624 AM. The Indo-European Hittite-Egyptian Treaty, mentioned in 1275 BC, is dated in this year, 1271 BC. The Hittites defeated the Egyptians but then allied with them rather than conquered because of the Assyrians to the east and the Sea Peoples Federation on the seas. Egypt in this year takes the offensive against the Sea Peoples Federation by invading and attacking the Philistine cities of Gaza and Ascalon. The news of the Egyptian takeover of the Federation ports in Philistia plants the seeds up to a major international maritime war that will erupt, known as the Trojan War. 1. A History of Civilization, Volume 1. 2. Ages in Chaos, Volume 2. 1255 BC, 2640 AM. The ancient kingdom of Argos came to an end, originally founded by the sons of Noah and Namar, called the Anakim, a race of enormous people called giants in the Old Testament records. The local population was called Argives, but the new dynasty was Mycenaean. The Argives assimilated waves of Achaeans from Palestine, escaping Canaanites, and now the new Mycenaean dynasty was founded, being that of the Danann. These came from the Danann and Achaean settlements and ports along the Phoenician coast. These were a patriarchal people who challenged the triple goddess of the locals, overrunning her shrines and annulling the ancient Medusan calendar by replacing it with another. It was these people from the Canaanite coast that brought to Mycenae a 7-day weekly calendar. These invaders were herdsmen, and the early Greeks claimed that it was these people from Palestine that brought agriculture to the Peloponnese. The occupation of the Peloponnese by the Israelite Danaan was not an oppressive one. Outsiders and locals were allowed to marry into the Danaan families, to take Dananite wives, and then be known as Danaanites themselves. This practice was an ancient Israelite institution, commonly accepting strangers into their population. Assimilation is a trait of Israel all the way through history to the founding and longevity of the United States of America in 1776 AD. Augustine mentions the beginning of the Mycenaean dynasty in Varro's chronology as occurring during the rulership of Deborah over Israel. The calendrics for this year indicate the rise of a new dynasty. This was 1584 years, 792 plus 792, after the start of the pre-flood Anunnaki dynasty in 2839 BC. Further, this was 552 years after the Abrahamic covenant was confirmed in 1807 BC. The covenant being that the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would fill the earth and bless the nations of the world. What was occurring at this time was essentially an Israelite renaissance throughout the Aegean and its coasts. 1. The Greek myths. 6. Augustine City of God, Book 18. 1250 BC, 2645 AM. This is an approximate date for a reference Hesiod made in Theogony concerning the Etruscans, who he called the far-famed Tirsenoi. This is a reference to the Phoenicians, for the capital of the Canaanite city was Tyre, and they were indeed far-famed. By this time the Phoenicians were assimilating with the Israelites. The Etruscans were noted for their artwork, religion, and script in early Italy. 1. Survivors of Atlantis. 1247 BC, 2648 AM. After orbiting beyond the inner solar system for 286 years, the Sodom-Trojan Apocalypse comet group returns and begins passing through the inner system within close proximity to Earth in a 3-year detritus reign